I don't really know a lot about them. All I know is that they sing songs. I'm not sure, they're just so sort of Scottish and I like that. They're called Runrig and they sing in Gaelic and they sing in English and they're really good. With the tears of the immigrant, tongue off again, we played the song, the English song, it's all lost in the song. Oh, Johnny, you're an old man, that's a long road, you drove us down with something, a moment since the Jesus turned.
Runrig's next concert is to take place up there in Edinburgh Castle. Is it a good idea to use the castle as a concert venue?
Well, if it's a sunny day, it'd be good. But if it's a rainy day, I think it'd be better inside. Nobody's ever had a concert at the castle, and I think it'll be a very good atmosphere there, and I think it's the right place to stage a concert.
Some people think it's a good idea to hold pop concerts in the castle, others don't. The people who live nearby might find it all too noisy. What do the media think about it? Is the story of a pop concert in a historic castle of any interest to people in newspapers and television? Alan Campbell is a freelance journalist. Mark O'Neill writes for a newspaper while still at school. Louise Welsh is a television news reporter. Billy Sloan writes music features for his newspaper.
Runrig are playing at Edinburgh Castle. It's going to be the most spectacular show in Scotland. We should go and cover it. We are the leading newspaper in Scotland. They are one of the leading bands in Scotland. We should be there.
It's really a question of whether we do yet another Runrig concert because it's a good story with the castle, you know, with the venue. I don't know what you think, Louise, in Edinburgh.
I think it would make a good picture, given the type of band that they are. And I know that they were delighted at the thought of playing at the Castle Esplanade.
Runrig are going to be at Edinburgh Castle tomorrow, and I'm going to go and watch the concert and then write a story about them, and hopefully I'm working on the press officer of Runrig and I'm going to try and get an interview with them.
But I think Runrig means something particularly special for people in Scotland, and I think they're now the biggest single live act in Scotland, and that's something you just can't ignore.
So why do we need 4 different versions? If there's only one event, isn't one story enough?
I'm trying to appeal to 2 lots of people. I think there'll be some people who are particularly interested in Runrig and will want to know what happened at the concert and possibly what your opinions are. But at the same time, I think there's going to be other readers who may be older and are curious about what's happening.
The readers are between those ages of 11 and 17-year-olds. The paper really explains the news in a way that they can understand, and that's really the purpose of Early Times, and that's why they buy it.
We're aiming at really 2 basic groups of people. Group 1 is people who buy records and buy concert tickets and are pop fans. We're aiming for them, but we're also aiming at people who maybe have never bought a record and have never bought a concert ticket in their life. So you have to try and base everything in far broader terms.
If the journalists are aiming their stories at people of different age groups, maybe they will all create quite different stories, even though they're all about the same event. What about reporting Scotland?
What we're trying to do is to inform people and sometimes to entertain people as well, but always to try and make the thing watchable for people on television. So we've got to combine good, crisp words, good, crisp writing with good television pictures.
Thousands of people work in the media. The journalists and reporters who plan to write about Runrig represent only a few of the people working for newspapers and TV. They may think they've got a good story, but does that mean they just go off and write as little or as much as they want? Or does someone else have a say in the matter?
Oh, hello now.
How are you doing?
Well, up to here, but what's happening this week?
Well, a couple of things I want to try and sell to you. At the Castle Esplanade, Edinburgh Castle, there's two very big events, one for Van Morrison and the second, which I think is of particular interest to Scotsman readers, I think, if I can twist your arm in this, is the Runrig concert. There's 2 nights of 8,000 people. I'm basically the, I suppose, contemporary music correspondent for the Scotsman. That includes pop, rock, jazz, some blues, and there's no great mystery to it. Occasionally I'm writing features, but on this occasion it'll be a simple concert review of Runrig. And I would certainly push for at least 1,000 words and try and get photographs in it.
1,000 words? You've got to remember there's other things to go in the paper, but I might settle for 400.
I'm supposedly employed in the Daily Record as the pop writer because I've got some kind of dubious expertise in the pop field. And, without wishing to be unkind, you're generally dealing with a lot of, let's just say, middle-aged executives in the paper who don't know Marilyn Monroe from Matt Monroe from Donnie Monroe. So 90% of the time they tend to trust your judgment. There is the other 10% of the time, you'll get a good interview with somebody that they've maybe never heard of, and you'll have to go in and sort of argue and fight your corner to try and get it into the paper.
I'm Louise Welsh. I'm a reporter with BBC's Reporting Scotland, the nightly news programme. I work in the Edinburgh office, and the producers in Glasgow are having a morning discussion this morning to decide what's to be put into the programme tomorrow. So using these headphones, I'm going to join them.
It's relatively busy. The Shadow Cabinet are going to be here at the Carlton Highland Hotel. This is Kinnock, Gordon Brown, it's John Smith, the whole economic team. Brian Taylor's covering that, Steve Condy's assisting him. Moving on to the lighter end of the show, Runrig are the second event of these castle concerts, which, as you recollect, caused a mild controversy at the time, and Van Morrison didn't really provide us with good enough pictures to cover it on the first day, but Runrig have been holding concerts all over Scotland, including a runway at Oban in the far north up in Shetland. It's really a question of whether we do yet another Runrig concert because it's a good story with the castle, with the venue. They're doing the concert what time? Say 8ish in the evening. Will they do a sound check in our time?
Well, I'll need to get in touch with the promoter and find out.
There's been no controversy.
There's less local residents come.
I think the woman who originally brought that action has in fact moved away.
So you think the controversy things is just not there? No. So really, what we're really coming down to is a showbiz piece.
What's more important, the words or the pictures?
In an instance like Runrig at Edinburgh Castle, the pictures are more important than the words, because there isn't really any point in me going and saying what a great gig it is in Runrig, rock 10,000 people on the battlements of Edinburgh Castle, because as soon as you say that, people want to go, well, show me, where is it? So if you don't have a picture for whatever reason, if something goes wrong on the night and you don't have a photograph, it's just been a complete waste of time.
Any possibility of photographs, do you think?
Well, I'll be asking the picture guys. It might be in a jumper in white, but it depends who's on that night. But it's certainly, it's once a live picture, yeah.
It's probable there'll be photographs along with the review, and I think that's an important part of obviously drawing your eye to the review.
So the fact that they're playing on the Castle Esplanade in Edinburgh is not a news event in its own right. If a story's strong enough, we'll carry it without good pictures because we want to tell people. But when it's something like that, which is not a really hard news story, the pictures are perhaps a little bit more important. Runrig tomorrow, well, we'll have to wait and see on that one.
The editor of the Times has asked for a picture and it's been sent to her, so it will appear with the article.
To get a good picture, again, it's a lot of preparation up front. You can't just turn up on the night with a camera in your neck and hope to get in and start taking pictures of Runrig. If that was the case, you'd have 5,000 people there with Kodak Instamatics all want to do the same.
Well, if it was going to be 400, how late can I get it in?
Quarter to 12 is absolutely the latest.
I think the biggest problem, really, is that you're on a deadline, which means that, we'll say the show starts about 8 o'clock. It may all be over by about 10:30, quarter to 11, but your copy, in this case, maybe about 400 words, has got to be in by 11:30, which means there's very little time to write it, but you have to go with your ideas well prepared. There may be a few sentences, some ideas, maybe even almost half your review written. I hate to say that.
I'm just worried it'll go on and on long after midnight, and you're going to be stuck up there, and we aren't going to have a hole in the paper.
Yeah, well, I'll do my best. Anything I write is likely to be subbed. That means, in simple terms, that it could be shortened. It may even, for some reason, be slightly elongated. Some of my bad English might be corrected, and that's something that really anybody that writes for a newspaper has to put up with.
As I say, I don't know much about them, so if I don't know much about them, then I can't really sort of decide for myself what sort of angle I'm going to be taking until I sort of find out something about them. I would write about what happens at the concert, and if I get the interview, I would sort of write about what I thought about them and their music.
It's now the morning of the concert. Louise Welsh doesn't have much time to do any planning for Runrig yet because she's out reporting on another story.
This one was in here. I don't quite know how we're going to do it. I think we'll have to mic the table.
What about yourself? Are you going to ask questions?
I would think so, yes.
So
I would hope so.
But you want your questions and his?
Yes, but as well as that, I'll probably do an interview afterwards if he's amenable to that idea.
Right.
So we'll just go in and see how it goes. Okay. Okay, you're running?
We're running it.
Mr. Dunlop, your 8th and last festival. Are you a happy man or a sad man?
Oh, at the moment, I'm a happy man because...
Louise doesn't even know yet if she's definitely covering Runrig this afternoon. The decision still has to be taken.
It really starts when we find out that the gig is going to be taking place. I mean, every gig is basically the same. You know, larger gigs, it's a bit grander. Smaller gigs, it's a bit smaller. But you have to arrange things like photo passes, you know, personal passes that just give you access to the arena that the concert's taking place in. There's a lot of preparation. You know, then by the time when you leave the office on show day, everything really should be done and there shouldn't be anything theoretically that goes wrong. Of course, it's never like that.
Donnie Munro, the lead singer of Runrig, has agreed to do only one interview before the concert. He's giving it to Billy Sloan.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but when you're on stage tonight, there's going to be 11 environmental health officers standing with gadgets. And if you go over the magic number 95 decibels, all hell breaks loose. Does that cause any kind of problem for the band having to sort of turn down, as it were?
Well, I mean, it's a problem that we don't have to contend with to some extent, because once we're up there, you know, it's not our problem anymore. It's Billy Wharton, sound engineer, who's got to keep an eye on these things.
Poor Billy.
I mean, I don't know. I really don't know what it means in terms of for an audience. You know, whether or not that makes it acceptable or unacceptable. I mean, it's one of the stipulations. I know that at Murrayfield, the U2 concert, I think it went up to about 114 or whatever.
If I was a proper reporter, I'd have a notebook in my hand and a pen and be scribbling everything Donnie Munro said down in fabulous 125 words per minute shorthand. But I'm totally useless at that, so I just use this tape machine, which I switch on and let the tape run, and Donnie's answers are recorded for posterity on a cassette. Now that can be a wee bit time consuming because it means that you have to go away and sort of listen back through the cassette and pick out the quotes you want to use and the quotes you want to discard. But I find that it makes me feel a bit more comfortable, and it also makes the artist feel a bit more comfortable, because if I'm sitting scribbling furiously, it can be a wee bit of a distraction and a wee bit off-putting.
I'm just about to phone my producer in Glasgow to find out exactly what I'm supposed to be doing this afternoon. Things are changing very rapidly today. It's been a very, very busy day. So some of the things that we thought we were doing earlier have been cancelled, and some new things have been added to the list. So I'm just about to give David Mackey a call. Hi, David, it's Louise here. What's happened to the Runrig thing? Has that been dropped, or...?
Okay, sorry.
Right. Just no time, I suppose.
What are they doing instead? What's more important than the Runrig story?
Today we've had a couple of big stories. Liz McColgan, won a world championship, the first Briton to win a gold at these championships, the first Scot, and we've also had the death of a very prominent parliamentarian, Alec Buchanan Smith, who was a leading light in the Tory party, although not a holder of office. So we want to mark both these events in a big way. At the beginning of the day, it looked as if I might be able to cover Runrig. It was certainly down on the list and we're giving it consideration. But because I only have a limited number of reporters and camera crews, I've had to decide that some things must go, and Runrig is one of them.
So, no television coverage from Reporting Scotland. But the newspapers are still taking part. The concert's about to begin.
I'd like to have a lunge about if it's all right and see what's happening, and backstage if possible. Perhaps get a few people's opinions on it, and the band and the music, and on the concert itself.
I'm a photographer with the Scotsman staff photographer, and I'm just going up tonight to do the Runrig concert. I've only done one concert before, so I'm no really an expert on it, but there's a lot of times in this game where you go to things that you've not covered before, so you've just to see what you can do. Close-in stuff, tight heads of the lead singer, and sort of further back a bit of the main set.
Well, it's 7:35. I'm here in the Lawn Market, and I'm just going to join some 8,000, I think, fans, Runrig fans up there. I think it's going to be some mad night. I've got my pen ready, I've got my ears ready, and all I've got to hope is my brain's working I'll have a chance of getting something back to the good old Scotsman at around about 11:35, 11:45, because if I don't, I'm going to be in big trouble. So let's see what happens next.
What a great job it must be working in the media. You get free tickets to go to concerts, travelling all over the place, taking photos, speaking to famous people.
You never know what's going to happen until you get to these things. And anything could happen, you know. There could be a storm and the roof could blow off the gig, or the band, something could go wrong on stage, or there could be an incident in the crowd. So you're always looking to see what's going to happen. You try and be everywhere at the one time, you know. Obviously it's difficult to actually stand and watch the show, but you've got to be trying be in 10 different places at once, so that if there is any kind of incident or an accident or anything serious happens, you've got it covered.
So, while they're all singing along and stamping their feet at the concert, who's taking care of things back at the office?
I'm the night editor on the night for the Daily Record. It's my responsibility to answer to the editor for all the news pages, the stories, the pictures, the headlines, the captions, the basic making up of the newspaper. The news angle of the story is that Billy expects or hopes that someone somewhere, police, council, will say that Runrig are playing far too loud for the local inhabitants. Now, if that happens, that's a very good story for us. Obviously, it may not happen, but if it does, we've got to be ready so that if it does happen, we move, and we move quickly.
The job of a night editor is to see the paper through the night, if you like. And the later editions are particularly my responsibility.
One decision taken late this evening is to send a news journalist, Alan McLean, up to the concert. He'll write a news article about the show in addition to Alan Campbell's music review. Journalists from the Scotsman, the Daily Record and the Early Times are watching the Runrig concert at Edinburgh Castle.
It could be that the photographer comes back with a picture, the kind of picture that says that picture has to go on the front page. Bear in mind that we've got Liz McColgan in there at the moment. So it's going to be difficult to dislodge her. It's going to have to be a very good picture to get her away.
While the journalists and photographers are at the castle, the first editions of the Record and the Scotsman are already being printed. So the stories about the Runrig concert won't be ready until the second edition. What a shame for the photographers. They might have got a free ticket, but they've got to get the pictures back to the office. I mean, the editor's tearing his hair out. He needs these pictures now. Oh, there you are. Great. Come on then, let's see. They should be brilliant.
Well, the lighting was pretty poor. Pretty poor indeed. And obviously the shots of the castle were hopeless tonight because this fog just came down and you couldn't see it at all. So, I mean, however, we used the picture earlier in the week at the Van Morrison concert of a sort of panoramic view, so I'm wanting to do something different anyway. I've seen one here I quite like. You can see on there with his hands up. You know, you can see it's Donny Munro and you get a wee bit of the feel of the concert. There's 4 on there, okay. I'll start to have a look. I'm just doing it. 13, a wee bit of contrast to that, eh? 36, just that, you know, the hand up, kind of get the smoke in it and thing.
Full frame?
Well, I get... Keep that light in, because it adds in the guy on the bass there, it just adds to the mood.
Right.
That one, and the one there with his hands up. I still go for this one here. I think that's the picture I prefer.
The concert's taking place in Edinburgh. The Record's offices are in Glasgow. And they need the photos now. How are they going to get there? The picture editor is waiting. What's that? They're sent electronically from Edinburgh. Should have guessed, really. The first one's coming through now.
What about the one where they were going to show the Esplanade? Nothing?
I don't know. I'll phone him and find out what he's putting on next.
Right. So that's lovely shape.
Hello, Edinburgh. Will you tell David the picture's the wrong shape? We need either a square or a landscape picture. Cheers.
The photographer's problem was that it was an outdoor job. It was late at night and mist was beginning to fall. The crowd were dark. He couldn't get enough light to get a big, wide, lovely picture. Unfortunately, that's just the way it went. So we had to take a picture like this, which is an action picture, and we couldn't get a big, big, nice, wide picture, which is what we wanted. So we had to just make the best of what we could do.
The front page is more or less staying as it was for the first edition. Liz McColgan holds her place. Yeah. We were looking at the Runrig picture as a possibility. If it had been a very dramatic picture, there's no doubt that we would have made a change. But it turned out to be not a dramatic picture, and so it's going on page 3. It's a good enough picture, but my feeling about it is that it could be in the exhibition centre in Glasgow. You know, we're not aware here that there's a castle and 8,000 people around. It's a performing picture. So it's not by any means a front page picture.
Once in a lifetime, you live and love. Once in a lifetime, you die. Once in a moment, the sun goes down. Protect and survive. Protect and survive.
Come on, guys. Where are you? We haven't got all day, you know, for goodness sake. Oh, Alan, hurry up. Come on, Billy.
Well, that's the band just on their second encore, I think. I've got some scramble notes here. I've got to get to a phone, and hopefully it'll all be in the printed page tomorrow. We'll see.
Silent scream for the lovers' love and the dreamers' dream. You stand and dream alone. You took your sacrifice to the gods of war, traded your children's lives for less of gold. Get your plowshares into swords, breathing free. Let's hear ya. Once in a lifetime, you live and love. Once in a moment, the sun goes down. Protect and survive. Once in a lifetime, you live and love.
Hello, copy.
Wait, sorry.
Hello, copy.
Sebastian?
Hello, Billy.
Is it you?
Yes.
Right, the catch line is concert, okay?
Yeah.
Right, here we go. I'm just making myself I'll be go along, so bear with me. Alright?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Right, Kings of the Castle, ...
Uh-huh.
That's Runrig, Point New Path.
Yep.
For the Scotch Rock Supergroup,
Yeah.
at 7,500 fans dancing with delight.
Yeah.
At Edinburgh Castle last night, Point New Path.
Yeah.
And from the moment they hit the stage, they had the crowd on their feet, Point New Path.
Hello, copy desk. Alan Campbell here. Review of Runrig, Edinburgh Castle, as follows. They came, comma, they played, comma, they conquered, full stop. After an encore had been demanded and got, comma, it seemed only one question remained. Open inverted commas, wha's like us? Question mark, close inverted commas. And the name in that is Alan, A-L-L-A-N, if you can spell it right, please, Campbell. And that completes the copy. Thanks a lot. Bye.
I'm aiming it at 10 to 12-year-olds, and I'm trying to tell them a little bit about Runrig and what happened last night. I didn't know much about them, so I mean, it's a bit awkward when you don't know much about them, but I got enough notes to make a story. This is the first time that they're really desperate to get the story in as soon as possible. They will scale it down a little bit depending on how much space they have. The editor of Early Times has asked for a picture and contacted the press officer, and she sent a publicity photograph.
I was not originally meant to be going to the Runrig show. I've been working on the news desk
pulling together stories from other people in different parts of the country on various serious issues for the most part. I'd spent some time in the afternoon writing the obituary of an MP who died today. And suddenly at 8:30 I was told that the reporter who was due to go to the Runrig concert was working on another story and couldn't go. And I was dispatched hence. And it has to be said that I enjoy it rather more than I do some things. Many of the things we do have a serious aspect, although we try not to make them boring, but interesting. This one's a bit different in that it's a bit of fun. There's a wee serious element in that there was some difficulty in Runrig achieving an Edinburgh venue, because residents were worried about the noise and all these young people who were going to come along. But Ramsay Gardens, which is some very nice flats right next to the Castle Esplanade, the people there were obviously those who were most likely to be upset if there was any real disturbance. And I've mentioned in the story, because I thought it was interesting, that many of them were at their open windows throughout the concert, and I'm sure they must have enjoyed it, because I did.
First impressions of the concert are that it's a great show, but to be honest, from our point of view, we're a wee bit in the lap of the gods, because you know, we have a band, and one of the top bands in Scotland, who are playing in this spectacular setting, and from our point of view, you just simply can't see it. I was up earlier on with photographer David Cruikshanks, and we were trying to get this very atmospheric picture of Runrig live on stage with the castle and the battlements in the background. But just before the band took the stage, this dreadful freezing cold mist came down, and you can't even see the castle, you know.
Back at the Record, the night editor has decided to put the Runrig story and photo on one of the inside pages. This is the amount of space reserved for the story, and once the photo is in place, there's not much room left for all the words Billy phoned through. It's the sub-editor's job to shorten Billy's story to fit the space available.
Right, what I'm doing now is I'm calling up the story, which Billy Sloane's written, bringing it into my own desk for subbing, and start to work on it and turn it into the form which you'll eventually see it in the paper.
The compositor completes the layout of the page.
Let's see how that looks in that slot, and I might be able to give just a fair amount of white space on top of that, which shouldn't look too bad. You square that off.
Reduce the depth on this?
Yeah, to give us more single column.
You're looking for a picture of Billy Sloane? A picture of Billy Sloane?
She's working on it. Tell her 4 parts and give us a crosshead and stuff. Okay. If she just puts a word out, I'll put it in at the appropriate place.
This is the space reserved for Alan McLean's news story. The photo is going alongside it. Alan Campbell's music review is being printed without a photo. Once the layout has been completed, it's transferred onto a film like this one before going to print. All the stories have made it in time to go into the second edition. They always check the second editions to make sure the new pages are in order. So, what did the journalists think of the final articles?
Well, ultimately it's been a bit of a disappointing day because you can see the preparation and the work that's gone into getting 15 paragraphs in a picture. To be perfectly honest, I mean, the picture, we could have got the picture at the file. It looks as if it's been taken at the Barrowland or the SCC or Edinburgh Playhouse. There's nothing really here to convey that this is a spectacular gig at Edinburgh Castle. In terms of the handling of my copy, I mean, we did an interview with Donnie Monroe earlier this afternoon, and we spent quite a bit of time actually on the concert site. You've really got to cover every eventuality. I mean, you've got to file virtually War and Peace and get enough background material to cover all bases. And it's better giving them too much and it ended up 15 paragraphs than giving them 5 paragraphs and being 10 paragraphs short. So it's, you know, I'm quite happy with that. But at the end of the day, it could have been so much better. I mean, it could have been great, you know, it could have been just magic and it's just okay. But at least we got it in the paper, so I suppose that's the main thing.
It took me about 5 minutes to find it, but eventually here we are in the weekend section and scaling the heights with Runrig at Edinburgh Castle, and it's more or less word for word as I wrote it, which may or may not be a good thing, I don't know. But fairly pleased with how it's turned out. But as always these things, I think it's an element of compromise. I can think of 1 or 2 things I could have expressed better and generally tighten things up. But the main thing is to get the story in, and it's there, it's on the printed page, and from that point of view, I'm happy with it.
Out of all these stories then, which is the one that you would be most likely to read?
Once in a lifetime, you live and love. Once in a lifetime, you die. Once in a moment, the sun goes down. Pretend.